Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good evening to Madam Christina and our beloved and our fellow friends. I hope that all of you are in the pain because today with me, Namilah SOLEHAH binti AMRI, as your moderator, we will conduct this webinar under topic international issue. Nowadays, the world face many problems whether in social aspect, economic aspect, or political aspect. But we are going to discuss today is one of the illness in social aspect, which is child abuse as this issue, the most popular case that being reported in international and community. We have to take care and look this problem in the bigger scope in order to ensure that this case will not be an illness with no medicine. Okay. Before we start our discussion, let me introduce all of the panelists to all of you. The first panel is HAWA SYAKIRAH binti NORAZMAN, researcher from Sultan Idris Education University. Second, NADHRATUN NABILAH binti ABDUL AZIZ, the School Counsellor of SMK Puchong Perdana. Next, Nurul IZZATIE binti ROZAIDI, the pediatrician at Hospital Tunku Azizah. And the last one is Nurul Syuhada binti RAMLI, one of the volunteers from the Women's AIDS Organization in Malaysia. Without furthermore, the first question to the first panelist, what is child abuse? Please welcome.
Thank you, Miss Moderator. Assalamualaikum and a very good day. I bid you all of the panelists and the audiences. I'm so glad to be one of the invited guests here. Before I start, let me ask some questions. Are you aware that recently child abuse has been the biggest concern of each country?
Yes.
Because due to that, I was thinking about children abuse. Children are arguably the most criminally victimized people in the world. As I've been participating in and conduct so many kinds of research about this issue, I can define that the term child abuse can be referred to as any of series of acts of commissions or omissions by a parent or other caregiver that result in harm, the potential for harm, or threat of harm to a child. They are beaten by family members, bullied, attacked and by schoolmates and peers, abused and raped by dating partners, or even targeted by sex offenders in both physical and virtual realms. Let's look at a few example cases of child abuse as it is one of the biggest international concerns. According to UNICEF, approximately 1,800 children die annually in the United States due to abuse and neglect. The Timber case was one of the famous murder trials of the 1980s as it was related to child abuse. In November 1987, Lisa Steinberg, a first grader, was beaten and left to die in her home in New York City. A baby boy was found tethered to a urine-soaked playpen in the next room. Joe Steinberg and Hedda Nussbaum, who falsely claimed to have adopted both children, were charged with murder. Also, Mia Kurihara death shines a spotlight on Japan child abuse. This case involved the death of 10-year-old girl who was beaten to death and raped by his abusive father. Nearly 3 in 4 children, or 300 million children aged 2 to 4 years, regularly suffer physical punishment of psychological violences from parents and caregivers. From the example of a few cases and statistics just now, you can see how wide a controversial child abuse is and how frequently it occurs internationally. Thank you. That's all from me. Back to Ms. Moderator.
Okay, thank you, Howard, for the nice information given. It is not enough if we just know the concept and a few simple cases of child abuse. So Let the second panel, Nadratun Nabilah binti Abdul Aziz, to explain the factors of child abuse. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you to moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to Madam Christina and hi everyone. My name is Nadratun Nabilah binti Abdul Aziz. I am school counselor of SMK Puchong Perdana. Let we continue with the factor of child abuse. Research has uncovered a number of factors of abuse commonly associated with maltreatment. Children in families and environments where these factors exist have a higher probability of experiencing maltreatment. A greater understanding of factors of child abuse can help professionals working with children and family identify maltreatment and high-risk situations so that they can intervene appropriately. It must be emphasized. However, that's why certain factors often present among families where mistreatment occurs. This does not mean the presence of these factors necessarily leads to child abuse and neglect. Ladies and gentlemen, there are factors of child abuse. First, parents are not prepared or have no knowledge of critical issues surrounding parenting. Two, parents lack an understanding of their children's developmental stage and hold unreasonable expectation for their abilities. Parents also may be unaware of how to discipline their children most effectively at each age. Three, parents are experiencing a lot of financial stress, such as a loss of job, unemployment, and diminished income. Parents has a mental health problem, is living with a chronic illness and experiencing depressions. 4. Parents are experiencing difficulties in their relationships, exposed to domestic violence and household undergoing marital problem, divorce, or feeling the stress of single parenting. And lastly, parents are dependent and addicted to drug or alcohol. I think that's all from me. I will pass to moderator.
Alright, thank you for the answer. Next, okay, now we know there are many factors of child abuse. Thank you to Nadratun Nabilah for the share. To make our webinar more exciting, Nurul Izzati, can you share about the effect of child abuse?
Okay, thank you, moderator, for giving me this opportunity. So as we know, most of child abuse will be suffering with long and short-term or even a lifetime impact. This depends on the level of abuse and its type. So there are three effects of child abuse that can be seen globally, namely physical effects, psychological effects, and social effects. So let me begin with physical effects, which is consists of minor injuries such as bruises or swelling to major injuries including deep lacerations and internal bleeding. There is life-threatening fractures, bringing about lifelong illness and physical disability. There are some parents who also use the physical discipline in educating their children with any object and then slap, punch, or kick, so that is excessive to bring another physical abuse. Indirectly, victims also will experience difficulties in living life, including when they become adults. They are only able to do certain jobs or are unemployed due to health problems that cause their movements to be limited, then it will create an unbalanced society for future life. So for the next one is psychological effects, which means the longer periods of physical abuse, the longer emotional difficulties are found in those children. There are many problems that the children will face, includes depressions and anxiety symptoms such as phobias, insomnia, nightmares, eating disorders, and lower self-esteem, especially in physically and sexually abused children. These symptoms may prolong and produce serious personality disorder, serious mental health. These symptoms may prolong and produce serious mental health consequences such as isolations, suicidal attempts, and personality disorders. So the impacts on a child's mental health can persist well into adulthood, such as post-traumatic stress disorder, which stands for PTSD. Without the proper treatment by referring to an expert, they will be exposed to suicide attempts while increasing the mortality rate due to the child abuse. So last but not least, social effects also happens among the victims when the negative behavior encourage them to engage with criminals, drinking alcohol, and assuming that they just need freedom from their bad childhood experiences. In one study also say that girls tended to express internalizing behavior such as depression, social withdrawal, and anxiety, while boys they tended to express externalizing behaviors like bullying, aggressions, hostility that lead up to adult criminal behavior. Indirectly, world will not be a safe place because the surroundings are not secure if many people who are experienced by child abuse implement their immoral behavior in return towards other children. That's all from me. Thank you. Back to moderator.
Okay, thank you very much, Nurul Izzati, for the very important information to open our mind. To open our mind wider, let Nurul Syuhada share with us about how to prevent child abuse. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you to our moderator. Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Nurul Syuhada binti RAMLI. I am one of the volunteers from the Women Aid Organization in Malaysia. So let's continue on how to prevent child abuse. One of the most important ways to solve this issue is the role of parents themselves. According to World Health Organization (WHO), it stated that preventing and responding to child abuse requires a multi-sectoral approach, including the knowledge of parenting and child development. Decades of research have shown that the effective parenting is the most powerful way to prevent behavior problems, especially for abusive. Parents need to teach children to control and express their anger and to resolve conflicts in non-violent ways. This is because children learn by imitation and observation from their parents. So, as a parent, you need to be a good example for your children and always try to understand them. In addition, concerned citizens and organizations are realizing that the best way to prevent child abuse issues is helping parents to develop the skills and identify the resources they need to understand and meet their children's emotional, physical, and protect their children from harm. Ladies and gentlemen, the next step to preventing this issue is reporting the abuse. If you are the one of the witnesses of a child being harmed or you see any evidence of abuse, please make a report to your State Child Protective Services Department or local police immediately. When you are talking to a child about abuse, please listen to them carefully and assure the child that they did the right thing by telling an adult. Lastly, the effective way to prevent this issue, we need to raise awareness about child abuse in the community and also in the world. For your information, we can use social media because social media is an outstanding tool in the fight against child abuse. Research shows that 80% of Americans believe social media is effective in raising public awareness about social issues including child abuse. At least half of the adult population in this world uses social media. In other words, by posting child abuse prevention message on your organization's social media or by your own posting, your chances of reaching the adults who need this message are much higher. So we can see here that social media networks can be a key avenue for sharing messages and educating the public about the importance of preventing child abuse and neglect. To sum up, there are three ways to preventing child abuse. The first is the role of parent. The second is reporting the abuse. And the third is raising awareness in the community and also in the world. I think that's all from me. Thank you. Back to our moderator.
Okay, thanks Nur Syuhada for sharing about how to prevent child abuse issue. As conclusion, we know that child abuse is not just physically violence direct at a child. It is any form of maltreatment by an adult. which is violent of or treatment for the child. This includes neglect. So we have to raise awareness around the world in order to prevent child abuse. Thank you to all our panelists. Now we move to Q&A session. There is one question in the chat box. I will pass the question to our panel. Okay, the question is, as an adult, how can we encourage a child to be comfortable to speak out to us if he or she is being abused? Okay.
I would like to answer the question. In my point of view, as an adult, how can we encourage a child to be comfortable to speak out to us if he or she is being abused is by building a connection and create a safe space for communication. As, we, as I believe that communication is the most important thing when it comes to child abuse, we must encourage them to talk about their feelings and experiences. We can, for example, we can ask them questions on and show some interest in the conversation. So when we do this action, the child is will be comfortable with us. They're willing to speak out their problems to us. Will share the problem with us with a comfortable environment. Because and I also believe that a safe space discuss feeling is the most important to help the children with any wrongdoings and help them deal with their own feelings because children are still early to not to being exposed about child abuse. So when we approach them first, they I think they will definitely comfortable with us and start to open up with us. That's all from me.
Okay, that's all from us. Thank you for joining our webinar today.